What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy Royale YouTube channel. We're back with a different kind of video today. We're going to be talking about Devy, but Devy trade value. So what I did is I outsourced. I talked to a bunch of different people in our Discord and on social media, and I said, hey, what are some Devy trades? Now, if you don't know what Devy is, I do have a video for that. You can kind of look at it in the comments. I'll link it in there. But really, it's a fantasy league where you can able to draft college guys and put them like on a taxi squad, and they're tradable assets. So the nice thing is about it, us degenerates out there that love fantasy football and college football, you basically have kind of like a minor league system. Now, what you can do with those assets is trade them. And that is one of the hardest things to kind of value is how do you value a Quinn Ewers compared to a Jared Goff, right? Now, what we have on our Patreon, we have combined rankings where we try to help you with that. But every league is definitely a microcosm of itself, right? So Devy can be very hard navigating that trade value. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at basically 8 or 9 trades here in Devy and Dynasty of what these guys are valued. I'm going to talk you guys through it, whether I think it was a good deal or not. Then I'm going to go over some buys and sells and the format that I like and from a college perspective of guys that I maybe go targeting right now. So that's the video. This new type of video. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if this helps you with trying to find value in your Devy leagues. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about it and let's go to the first trade. So, again, it is incredibly difficult to find value here, but all of these deals that we saw are Superflex, tight end premium, or Superflex 12 team. Some are tight end premium. I'll mention that. And this is what it looks like. So we have Trey Benson and Jerry Jeudy for Jonathan Mingo and Sam Howell. So Trey Benson obviously is the Devy piece here. This is an interesting deal for me because I'm pretty much out on Jerry Jeudy at this point. I think we kind of see what he is until he gets a new spot. What does that even look like? Jonathan Mingo and Sam Howell, I kind of throw away. To me, I like Hal, but I don't know. I mean, there's question marks about him going to be starting next year or even this year. Jonathan Mingo has not panned out to what people have thought. I like the Trey Benson side because I do think if Trey Benson gets day 2, you're excited about it. Jerry Jeudy finds a new team. Devy value rises. I think the rising of the value is on that side, on the Trey Benson and Jerry Jeudy side with Dynasty and Devy value. And that's where I would lean. But for context, this is an interesting deal, right? Like if you have a Sam Howell, he's your QB4. Maybe you can go out and try to find like a team that needs a quarterback that will be able to give Trey Benson where you kind of increase that value. Now, remember, Benson value is going to pretty much hold through February, right? Until the Senior Bowl, until the Combine, when we get into March. So you have opportunities to still ship him in those things. Hal and Mingo doesn't look like that value is going to shift. Next deal that we have is Sky Moore, a 24 third, and a Mecca Egbuka for Quentin Johnston, Michael Mayer, Blake Corum, and a 24 fifth. This is interesting in a lot of ways. I think a Mecca for some people have kind of gone up and down in Devy value. He's probably a faller just based on the season and where I see him going. Sky Moore, what is Sky Moore, right? So this is like upside on the other side. You get Quentin Johnson, Mayer, and Corum. This to me deals like you have to be a believer that Corum's going to get day 2 capital. If you think Corum's going to get day 2 capital and Johnson kind of steps up, he already got first round capital, and then Mayer is kind of like that piece. I like that side, right? If Quentin Johnson, but there's a ton of risk on that side. I think Mayer is a very safe piece. The fifth doesn't matter to me. Neither does the third on the other side. But then Corum and Johnson are really the key in this area. And I would tend to stay away from trading for Devy running backs because of the volatility. But I understand maybe going for it on that side. Now, if Johnston comes out and plays better, he's with Herbert. We like that side. Corum, hey, he's able to kind of step up. He gets day 2 capital. That side will win this trade. But Emeka could be the wide receiver 2 of the class. So I like both sides. I think the safer side is Emeka's class, but the Emeka side. But I do like the Johnson and Mayer side. This is pretty fair to me. I think this is a fair deal. This is one of those deals, though, that we come around like, what, May next year? Like, oh, my God, a Mecca will smash just because of the draft capital. Johnson doesn't turn out. But that's the risk of this format, and that's the risk of kind of these leagues. That's the fun part about this and the frustrating part. Next deal, Barry and Brown for Jonathan Brooks. I like this deal for both sides. We haven't really seen Barry and Brown. I mean, he's looked okay, but that Kentucky passing offense has not been great. As good as we thought it was going to be with Devin Leary. Barry, and I still think is an asset. You know, he hasn't had the season that we all thought he was going to have, only 23 catches, 276 yards. But I do think from an NFL perspective, he still has an NFL upside because of the way the NFL is trending. But Jonathan Brooks looks like he might be a day 2 guy, and he's looked really good too. So this is just a I believe in you trade, and I think it's a good deal for both sides. I could understand it and make an argument for both. The next deal, Evan Ingram, and this was a 2 tight end premium league. So he talked about, tight end and tight end premium is heavy on the tight end side. And these are the prices you pay. So this is a 2 tight end league. You have to start 2 tight ends, tight end premium, and I believe is a 14 team league. So when you're talking about disparity in the assets, that's where that comes into place. For Evan Stewart and Deuce Robinson, and you guys know me, I'm always going to be siding with the Evan Stewart and Deuce Robinson side because I love Evan Stewart. However, I understand it as someone who plays in 2 tight end premium leagues and 14 team. You really have to pay up for these guys. And I get it. If you're a contender, you want Ingram, you're like, hey, I'm going to go for it, but I need that second tight end in a league like this, or maybe a first tight end. I go grab Ingram. I get that. I understand, but that's the price you pay for a tight end premium kind of asset with Evan Stewart and Deuce Robinson. I think the question with Deuce is, will he play football? Right? Evan Stewart, I don't know if there's tons of question marks, although, I guess the concern would be is Luther has pushed himself so far up that Evan Stewart has lost that value in that class. Luther Burden from Missouri, but I do like this deal. I think it's fun. Next one, 24 first, Malik Neighbors and Trey Palmer for Brandon Ayuk and a 24 third Devy. So I'm assuming the 24 first is going to be just straight up rookie, right? So that value kind of dips a little bit. Depends how that kind of works out, right? Then if they have a Devy side of it, that's going to be a little bit more valuable because a third and straight Devy, you're talking about the freshmen that are coming in and some of the Devy guys possibly that are still there. So this really comes down to me, the Malik Neighbors and Brandon Ayuk, and who do you believe in more, right? To me, I would lean the Ayuk side and Devy side because I like Ayuk. I think he can be a top 15 guy. He's pretty much sold in. Debo's being out. Then you have that Devy piece, which I think is a little bit more value than a 24 first, depending on where that first is at. Top 5, we could talk ourselves into some of these guys because there are usually some assets in that range. Then you have Neighbors, who I do like. I think I just put him as my wide receiver 2 on the big board or wide receiver 3. But I would lean Ayuk side here just because of that proven production. Next deal, and I thought this was a fascinating one. I really like this deal here. Braylon Allen, Blake Corum, a 24 first for Devy, a 24 first for rookie, and Christian McCaffrey. If you're a contender, you do this deal 100 times out of 100, right? You go get CMC, you give up Allen, who has question marks, Corum, who has question marks, and you have to give up 2 first for CMC. That's appropriate value, especially after what he just did when he was injured. He's the running back 1 right now in the formats. So this just shows you what CMC value going for and what you could maybe possibly get on return. Again, if I'm getting rid of Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if I am selling for 2 running backs that are going to have questionable draft. I don't want to say capital because I don't know where Allen's going to be. I think some NFL teams are really going to like his skill set, but I just get concerned about throwing McCaffrey away for running backs. I would probably went the wide receiver route, try to go grab some elite wide receivers on that side, like Burden or Evan Stewart, or even in the 24 class, right? The top guys there, Xavier Worthy. I don't know if you can get Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's worth a shot. Like try to maybe make a package with him, a Mecca. A lot of those different guys in that group that can be in there. Troy Franklin, like try to grab maybe a wide receiver instead of Corum, try to grab a wide receiver or something like that, just to kind of help you there. And I love it from the other side though. Get CMC and go try to win your league. Then we have Bo Nix for Christian Watson. I thought this was a super interesting deal just because I think there's a lot of question marks about Bo Nix. I pretty much have Bo Nix off my radar. I would take the Christian Watson deal in this for Devy because I trust Christian Watson to actually score fantasy points. Whereas Bo Nix, I have no idea if he's going to get drafted in the first 2 rounds, right? Or the first 3 rounds, day 1, day 2 in that area. I have no idea. So I would lean Christian Watson this because he scores fantasy points. Next one, and this is a good one here. I wanted to go through it. Damian Martinez, who, I've touted here at the program for a long time before a lot of people were doing it. Raheem Sanders and Rashee Rice for Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to smash the Taylor side on this just because I do think that when you're looking at proven elite running back assets, it's hard to go by. I like the other side, though. So this is how the other side wins, though. Damian Martinez, Raheem Sanders get the draft capital they expect. Raheem has kind of dropped off the face of the planet, though, in terms of his profile right now. There's talk about him going back to school. There's talk about him transferring. But I do like that Rashee Rice has kind of popped off as well. There's a ton of upside with that top area there. And like I just said, I like trying to get at least a wide receiver back for your running back, your elite running back, where she could be that guy tied to Mahomes. And we're talking about being a very good value. So this kind of gives you an idea what Jonathan Taylor's value is in the Devy/Dynasty League, but also on the other side with the assets you might want to accumulate for Jonathan Taylor. I don't mind this deal. I probably wouldn't throw Sanders in, but I know the person that got Sanders here is probably a believer, and you have to give him, props for doing that. All right, let's get into the buys real fast in the format that I like, and then we'll get out of here. So one buy that I like is Matthew Golden. Hasn't had an amazing year this year, but 25 class kid. His receiving grades around 70. Drops. He's had a little bit of drop issues this year. His wide percentage and slot percentage has gone. It's been okay. It's kind of fluctuating. I'd like to see him a little bit more out wide. His ADOT hasn't been amazing. However, I still think he's a hell of a wide receiver. I think 34 catches, 383 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Hasn't had the greatest season this year in terms of what we thought his production would be, as you see from his last year numbers. Houston's been kind of a train wreck, though, when you're talking about what that team has done. So I still believe in his talent. And when we thinking buys in Devy, he's kind of a throw-in, right? He could be that deal that you have a package deal where you get him thrown in because maybe that manager's like, oh, he's not going to be anything. He sees the production dip a little bit. Hey, go get Matthew Golden and stash him and hope that he kind of has that breakout. And then next year, he can still have a breakout year where you're excited about his production. My next one is Jacob Cowing. I still like Jacob Cowing, and I don't think he's getting valued as high as he should. Right. So 55 receptions, 425 yards, 8 touchdowns. Receiving grade has been good. He's out of that slot percentage. His ADOT's not high. But I think Jacob Cowing, the thing that sets him apart is I think that he has an NFL future. I think that the way teams are kind of moving towards in their offensive system, they want the small guy to create separation. That's Cowing. Like, he can do that really well. When you're looking at what he's been able to do against USC, he had 10 receptions. He doesn't necessarily have like the eye-popping numbers for receiving yards, but his receptions are huge. Listen, 8, 10, 9, 8, 10, 7 on the year. He's not having those big type games, but he can be those possession guys. And when I see reception numbers like that, the thing that pops off to me is PPR gold, man. Just get those targets and catch balls and give me a point. And I think that's where he performs well. I've talked about him kind of being Zay Flowers-esque. Both guys are going to be in there, 4-year guys. Obviously, I didn't put up the numbers from him at his previous school, just at Arizona up there. So, coming from, UTEP where he was at, going here, he's that kind of Zay Flowers-esque, been in school for a few years. He can make a move in testing. I don't think he's going to test as well as Zay, so that's why I don't think he's going to get first round. But I do think teams are going to like his skill set, and so he's someone to watch as we get closer. Now, my sells, or basically one sell that I have, I'm kind of out on Raheem Sanders. And I know I just mentioned him in that Jonathan Taylor deal. And it's not that I don't think he can bounce back. Obviously, he's only played in 3 games this year, so it's hard to really kind of take away a lot from this season, especially after what he did last season. You can see there were 1,400 yards. We talked about him as being an overrated Devy asset, though, as far as, I don't know, June or July, whenever me and Christian at the channel, we talked about it. But if people still believe in him, there's some people out there that still believe in him. And if they're going to believe in him as like a first round talent in a recent Devy mock, remember, he went in the first round. If they believe that, then this is a time to pivot off of Raheem Sanders, go get a different asset. That's how I would look at Devy. Like, hey, if I can kind of pivot with the first round grade that people have on him, then I'm going to go do it. There are people that will love Sanders in your Devy league. So if you know that, if you understand game theory and understand what people kind of want and need and the players they like, Sanders could be that type of player that someone's going to believe in. You go grab him like you did. You get a package, you're going to go get Jonathan Taylor or a guy that you kind of want and need for your dynasty team. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun kind of talking about trades and what's going on, what the trade value is out there. And then just to show you some buys and sells for the Devy format, something that is harder to do because it's hard to value those guys. But I wanted to give you guys some names to kind of be aware of. And also, if you can sell Raheem Sanders at market price, what he was going for in the offseason, you might want to do that now and then let someone else take the risk later. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll check you guys next time.